franktalks.com.
And welcome back to the program. My name is Howie Silbiger. This is the Howie Silbiger Show right here on 1650 AM CJRS Radio Show Montreal. Heard around the world on the True Talk Radio Network. TrueTalkRadio.com is the official site of the Howie Silbiger Show, where we have blogs and a whole lot more. Visit TrueTalkRadio.com. Now, my next guest is a very familiar guy. He's been on the show, I don't know, about 10 times already, maybe 9-10 times. And he's an author. All right, you want to find out more about Frank, you could go to franktalks.com. In studio with me, by the way, Frank is Emil Lukowski and Jordan Ohana. And Frank is on the phone, and I'm here, me, Howie.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Good. We're very good, thank you.
Now, Jordan was very excited to talk to you.
Very excited.
Oh, go ahead. What do you want to know?
Because he wants to talk about relationships. He says he is Mr. Relationship. That's what he told me.
Well, they do call me the chick magnet at school.
The chick magnet, Frank.
I don't think we go to the same school then.
Well then.
All right. So Frank, we got the chick magnet here. Did I call you a maggot? I'm sorry.
More like a chick maggot.
Well, being a chick magnet is very different from being Mr. Relationships. Usually they're polar opposites.
All right. How's that?
Well, you can attract them. Doesn't mean you can keep.
But before you say anything, I just want to say that it's very interesting what we're talking about. So I'm very interested in this. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out, Jordan.
Yeah, that's a start.
So Frank, chick magnet Jordan here says that the girls flock to him. They're all over him all the time.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. I don't know if Mill's seen it, but Jordan claims that.
Well, if he claims that and it's true, then he's doing a lot better than most of the guys out there who are not on the receiving end of that kind of attention.
Then it is true.
So what would cause one particular person to be a chick magnet and a guy like Emil to repel girls? Repel girls.
That's below
completely repel them. What would cause that to happen?
We're not getting nasty. We're not going to get nasty. Okay, let's not get nasty to anybody here. Like that. All right. What could cause somebody to be a chick magnet? Usually they want something from him and not necessarily like him as a person. The same way that a woman who is very, very attractive probably gets a lot of guys hitting on her, not because she's got a great personality, but because they want something from her. So that should pretty much answer the question.
So if Jordan's fairly good looking,
which I am.
All right, in his opinion, if Jordan's fairly good looking and the girls find him attractive, so they want him because he's a good looking guy. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they might want him because he's a good-looking guy, or they might want him because there's a certain status that comes with being with a guy who's wanted by a lot of girls. They may not actually care about him as an individual.
Oh, that's sad.
So it's more for themselves?
It would be more for themselves, unless it's someone that actually knows you and has probably been your friend for the longest time, who's seen you in your ups and downs, and still wants to be with you. Now, that's the person that you should value and take a chance on.
But wouldn't that be the deluded person, the person who's like totally living in la la land, because they already know your faults? So,
well, if somebody knows your faults and they still want to be with you, that's not delusion. That's actually affection.
There's no difference between delusion and affection?
Well, absolutely.
Okay.
Isn't that more of a friend though, instead of a relationship?
When you're trying to talk about long-term relationships, okay, that's what we're focusing on. You want someone who you're compatible with. You want someone that knows your faults and is still willing to stick it out with you. Because that's the type of person that when things get rough in life and you have a crisis, somebody is sick, you have a kid that needs extra attention, you have an aging parent, when you have a life crisis going on, you want your best friend to be your life partner. If you're just going out there to have some fun and to, play the field, so they say, those things are not that important. But when you're looking for a long-term partner, possibly a marriage partner, look to your best friend who's been there for you, because that's a pretty good indicator that they would be there for your children.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't think Jordan's at that stage yet, though. Well, neither am I.
So if we take a guy like Emil who repels women,
Okay.
And so Jordan's the chick magnet, Emil's the chick repeller. Why would a guy repel a woman? What would it be in that guy? What would be the reason that woman would be repelled from somebody?
I don't know.
Well, why don't we get? Well, I'll let Emil ask me the question, just to be fair to him.
But I was asking the question.
I don't know how I got this status. Randomly.
Well, I'm going to give you the chance, Emil. Why don't you ask me the question? Please ask the question about how we asked, but in your own way.
Frank is just trying to be fair, but yeah.
Why would an individual,
Like Emil?
unlike me, repel people from the opposite sex?
Generally speaking,
That was very well asked.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, it was. Kudos to you. Generally speaking, people behave in a way that, for lack of a better term, turn off potential partners. And what they're doing is, they're violating emotional needs. They're doing things where they don't necessarily feel safe. They don't necessarily feel they can trust the other person to do basic things like protect reputation. So if you're behaving in a manner where somebody can't really feel...
Like in a disrespectful manner?
Not even in a disrespectful manner. If you're with somebody and they feel that they constantly have to parent you...
What do you mean by
Because
parent?
Let's say you're behaving in a way that's costing them their reputation, that's costing them their social status.
And obviously they wouldn't want to be with someone like that.
Exactly.
So
If they have to turn around to you and say, listen, be mindful of what you're doing and stop making me look bad or stop embarrassing me, that's usually a sign that even if their attraction was there initially, it's not going to last.
So are you saying that Emil is someone that's embarrassing to be with?
Not at all. I think Emil should be the one to address that.
yeah, I don't know where these people are coming from.
You know what? If they're attacking you, it's because they're jealous. On some level, they're jealous.
I am definitely jealous of Emil.
Thank you.
Could I ask you something?
I want to be as white as him.
Wow.
Can I ask you something, Mr. Kermit?
Absolutely.
What would you say about some guy who wants to have a relationship with a girl but who's afraid of rejection? This is not me, but who's afraid of rejection.
Okay, so basically he wants to ask a girl out.
Yes.
He's looking for a relationship.
This is not me, by
You
the
can
way.
do it, Jordan. You can do it.
I understand, but there's a fear of rejection in place.
Yes.
Rejection is a part of life, and every time you make a move to let somebody know you like them and try to go out on a date with them, that's a risk you're going to have to take. If you've built up in your mind all the potential that the two of you could have as a relationship, rejection hurts more. And what you have to be mindful of is that when you do ask somebody out, rather than wait, 3 months, 6 months to bring up the courage, you're better off telling them right away and say, look, I like what I gotten to know so far. Let's meet up for a coffee. Let's spend some time
I don't
together.
drink coffee.
Okay.
He's 14 years old. Come on, Frank.
Okay,
He doesn't drink. He doesn't drink coffee.
Okay, so basically you want to ask out a girl, but you're afraid of rejection.
That's not, no.
Yes, that's what he's asking.
My friend Chuck. Yeah, my friend
Yeah,
Chuck.
his friend Chuck. Yeah.
Okay, so Chuck is worried about rejection.
Yes.
Here's what I would tell Chuck. Look, first you have to be mindful of what exactly are you afraid of. Are you afraid that your entire grade is going to beat you up for it? Are you afraid that you won't be able to show your face? You're embarrassed in front of the whole school? Are you afraid that the girl that you've chosen to ask out has a reputation for being vindictive or mean?
Frank, what if they don't know what they're afraid of? They're just afraid.
Look,
Sometimes you can't quantify fear. Sometimes fear is just fear.
Everybody hates rejection, okay? But if you want to have love in your life, there are some risks you're going to have to assume, and rejection is one of those risks. If you're not willing to risk rejection, you're guaranteed to be alone.
Well,
It's you definitely don't look forward to being rejected.
No one
To
looks
say the
forward
least.
to being
but everyone's
That's
been,
something no one wants.
But everyone's been rejected at one point or another.
only
Yes.
if they've taken the chance.
Right.
If they've taken the
Wait,
chance...
is there anyone in the world who hasn't been rejected at one point? I mean, is there anyone walking around who's blissfully ignorant of what it is to be rejected for something, anything?
Channing Tatum.
No.
Like the movie stars out there.
Well, I'm sure they didn't get the role that they wanted to get, so they were rejected from that job, or
Well, if you're talking about
reject out of anything.
and,
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, of course. Everybody's likely experienced rejection, but in a romantic world, I have met people who have never experienced rejection, but that's also because they've never taken the chance to ask anybody out. And they end up in their 30s and 40s never having been in a relationship.
Frank Kermit is on the phone. Jordan Ohana and Emil Levkovsky is in studio. I'm Howie Silbiger. We'll take a little break. Frank, hold on, and we'll come right back, okay? We'll take a little break. When we come back, the Howie Silbiger Show continues right here on 1650 AM CJRS Radio, Shell, Montreal, and around the world on the True Talk Radio Network. TrueTalkRadio.com, the official site of the Howie Silbiger Show, has blogs and a whole lot more. Visit TrueTalkRadio.com. And Frank Kermit is on the phone with us, in studio with me, Jordan Ohana and Emil Levkovsky.
And Jordan Ohana just find out he will be in charge of Hertz Radio next year. Woo!
That was a weak woo.
That was a weak woo. Hi, Frank.
Hey there.
All right, so the ghost and the maggot, are very curious about how they could be a little more into girls, a little more into getting girls attracted to them.
What? Say what?
That's what the ghost was telling me on during the break.
This guy's crazy.
Well, there is something you can do.
Yeah, what could they do?
If you're interested. Okay. Number one, and this is the advice I give all singles at the beginning of the new year, because everybody comes to me talking about New Year's resolutions. This is the year they're going to change everything. This is the year they're going to get a girlfriend, get a boyfriend, start something new in their life. And the advice is always the same. Stop wasting time.
That's a good advice.
Okay, that's the advice. Stop wasting time.
So how do you stop wasting time? I mean, you procrastinate, you're scared, you don't want to do stuff.
Can I answer that?
How do you stop wasting time?
How do I answer that? Can I answer that?
Are you the expert?
No, I just want to answer this my opinion.
All right.
How do you stop wasting time? You cut to the chase and you do what you gotta do. At the moment, you gotta do it.
Wow. Cliche after cliche. I love it. Frank, what do you think?
He's got the right idea. Let's put it into a context now.
All right.
You only have 24 hours in a day. A lot of that time is already booked up by your obligations that you have to do. Once you've done your obligations, and I'm talking about even your obligation that you have to give yourself 8 hours of sleep, whether you're in school or whether you have a full-time job, sometimes people have both, whatever time you have outside of that, that's where you cannot afford to waste time. If you are single and you want to be in a relationship, spending your free hours playing video games, watching television, going to the movies, instead of putting yourself in more social situations where you're going to meet new people, that's an example of wasting time.
So, Frank, how realistic is that, though?
How realistic is it? It really depends on the kids. Some kids really do making a priority. Other kids like the idea, but they're really not that interested. They're not going to. And I do want to correct something. Okay. I didn't say to go.
Frank, you're breaking up. So give us a second. Let's see if we could reestablish, and let's try again.
How many kids would actually give it up? The fact is, not very many.
Well, actually, it depends the type of kid you are. If you're like,
exactly.
The sporting guy who's very into girls, he would. But if you're the civilized kid,
the nerdy type,
nerdy type who's very studious, likes video games, maybe he won't. It depends the type of kid you are. If you're that standard kid, that's the debatable part.
I think every kid at some point reaches a threshold of pain where being alone is more painful.
But no 14-year-old will reach that threshold of pain because, we're 14.
Don't be too sure. Don't be too sure. For some people, the idea of just still being alone, it can be very detrimental to them. There are teenagers who are serial daters, that they can never be alone. As soon as they break up with somebody, they're looking for somebody else to replace them.
I really don't think that actually I do think that there's a huge difference between, let's say, a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, though, when it comes to relationships.
And that's what I said before.
Of course.
And the mentality and the maturity is different between 14 and 17.
Well, the mentality and the maturity between a 17-year-old and a 21-year-old is different.
That's true. So does the same rule apply to all the age groups, or does it change as you get older?
Of course it changes.
Are you the expert?
I'm just giving my opinion.
I'm joking.
you would be surprised how it has less to do with age and more to do with where you are in the cycle of your lifespan. If you're in that cycle where you are still getting yourself educated and you haven't started your career and you haven't even moved out on your own, there's going to be a certain attitude you're going to take towards dating relationships, which is going to be different from someone who has started their career, is living on their own, and possibly looking to start a family.
But the thing is, this is my opinion, you're 14. You don't need a girlfriend no matter who you are. You're 14 years old, you're young. It's time that, like, maybe if you're 21, yes, because you're alone, it's been a long time. In my opinion, it all matters the age. And maybe, like you said, it's the person who you are. I don't know.
It could go both ways for the age, right? Because, like, you could be a 14-year-old who needs another person in their life, or you could be a 14-year-old who prioritizes in other things. Just like you can be a 17-year-old who wants one thing or another. You know what I'm saying?
Let me give you to you in this example, because I think this example is going to summarize everything you're all talking about. You take a child that grew up in a house of neglect, a child who grew up never feeling loved at home, never being validated at home. And that child who's a teenager ends up being able to get those emotional needs met by being in a relationship which maybe they're too young to be in. That's the type of person that may actively seek it out and make it a top priority over everything else, including their own education. So when I'm saying that it doesn't apply to everybody, it's because there are always cases where for some young people, what they're getting in those relationships that they seek, whether or not it's emotionally healthy is a different argument. But if they're not getting certain emotional needs met at home, they may seek that out in the relationships that they get into. We can make a different argument and say, well, is it really emotionally healthy for these young people getting into or trying to get into some kind of serious relationship, or at the very least substituting attention for affection? That's a completely different debate. Now, if an individual who's a teenager has no interest in that, they shouldn't be forced into it, nor should they be coerced into it. But if we're talking about a teenager,
doesn't peer pressure coerce you into it anyway? I mean, the combination of puberty and peer pressure.
For some people, it can. For some people, peer pressure and just the validation of your peers is so important that they end up doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. With that said, you can only blame peer pressure so much. At some point, and this is part of growing up and being mature, you have to understand that regardless of what your influences are, you got to take responsibility for your own actions. And the sooner that children, and I don't even want to say children, but the sooner that young adults learn that, the sooner that they're going to start making better choices for themselves.
All right. So, Frank, any advice for young guys who really want to get into this the girl scene? What's your advice?
My advice is this: just be realistic about your situation. Chances are very high that the person that you end up dating right now isn't going to be the person you're going to marry. The statistics are against it. If you want to date somebody and you're afraid of getting rejected, maybe you aren't ready. If you're a teenager, maybe you're not ready. But if you are willing to take the chance, then spending time doing those things that are not helping you meet somebody is where you're wasting your time. And if you do want to go out on a date, that's okay too. But please, be careful, be realistic, because the choices you make now may have consequences that you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life.
It all depends, because in my opinion, I'm a 14-year-old. I really, right now, a girlfriend is not my, top priority. But, we're young. And do we need a girlfriend? No. Some people may need a girlfriend, yes. Some people may want a girlfriend, yes. But do we really need one? That's the question that should be asked.
I think you also have to remember that what applies to you and what works for you doesn't necessarily mean that should be applied across the board. And you have to be very careful of that, because it's so easy to think, well, this is the way I am, this is the way I think, therefore everybody should be this way. Not everybody's good at every school subject. Some people excel at one subject, and some people simply, for whatever reason, they just can't make it work. If you take that rule and say, well, because I'm good at this subject, everybody should find it easy, you're going to eventually find that you, without knowing, are ostracizing people, or pushing people away that may need that extra attention. And things that you yourself may not find easy when other people do, what you're going to be looking for in that moment is some compassion. You're going to be looking for understanding. You're going to be looking for people to say, hey, you're struggling with that? Let me give you a hand. And they won't be there for you because you weren't there for them.
Frank Kermit, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. And, of course, Frank, your website is franktalks.com. So keep up the good work, Frank, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Take care, everybody.